Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm joined by my special guest today, Joshua Berrios. How are you today, Joshua?
Hey, I'm doing really good despite the mean cough. But I'm doing
Uh,
great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad I think we met in probably an unconventional way. We met on FlowClub, didn't
On
we?
FlowClub, a virtual co-working platform. That's
Are
correct.
you still doing flows?
I am, and I am a host there too. Been doing it for
Yeah, that's
over
a lot
close
of
to 2
fun.
years now.
So for anyone out there listening, FlowClub is, I'm going to explain it. And it's not going to make any sense to you, but promise me, I promise you that it works really well. So Flow Club, you sign up, you log into the website, you basically have a calendar of people that are hosting what we call flows.
Mm.
And so if I'm recording this right now about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, someone's probably hosting a flow. Now, flow could be 30 minutes, 60 minutes,
3
120 minutes,
hours
180
max.
minutes. Yeah. And there's a variety of different ones. But basically, you log into a flow and there's a host, and the host and however many people show up for the flow go around the table and they say, in this flow, I'm going to accomplish a list of goals. I'm going to do X, I'm going to do Y, I'm going to do Z. And then for the period of time that you're there, you go off and you work on your goals. And the host usually plays music of their choice. So some people have really good taste in music and some not so good taste in music. But
Right.
you go through and you do all your tasks and you check them off. And then at the end of the flow, you all come back and you celebrate the stuff that you got done and the wins that you had. And it's really cool in the interface because you can throw confetti, and it's the whole thing. And I think this is a big part of it, is that you're on camera and you're basically co-working with virtual people for an extended period of time. And that's where I met Joshua. I think we were in several flows together,
Various,
and
yeah. Last
then
year.
hooked on LinkedIn, and the rest is history. It's amazing how we get connected nowadays.
Yeah.
But Joshua, I think, would you agree? Like, Flow Club really enhances how much you're able to get done in a given day.
Yeah, so I do agree with that. I actually started using it last year around this time, and um, this is not a sponsored ad or anything.
I'll
It's
drop
just
my
been.
referral link in the show notes. Yeah.
I'll drop mine too, so we can see which one gets the most, right? um, but it's been great, especially with for myself, who I guess I have undiagnosed ADHD. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I also suffer from other mental health issues due to my time in the military, and it has helped me stay more concentrated since I'm not in that environment where everything has to be in order. I have to like put on the civilian cap and then kind of be, no offense, but more complacent and lazy about
Yeah.
certain things. Um, but Flow Club has kept me in order. Has helped me during the times where I got laid off last year, transition into tech as a video creator, um, ended up working at FedEx for a little bit, was still on Flow Club trying to network with people and work on applying to jobs. So it's been great. And I still
Yeah.
use it today as of my full, and I host there as well. So as a full-time software engineer, I still use it because my whole team is remote and I like to feel like someone's next to me, even though they don't know what I'm talking about.
We'll have to see how many listeners we can get on Flow Club because of this conversation. So
Right.
hopefully we have painted a pretty picture. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about Flow Club. We're here to talk about Joshua. Joshua, why don't you tell the listeners out there kind of what are you doing now for a living?
Yeah, so I am a full-time software engineer for a healthcare SaaS company out of Wisconsin. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, so I am among one of the remote employees. All our team is remote, really. And I actually just started this role May 1st of this year after I was laid off from my previous role as a UI UX developer. And it has been a blessing in disguise. So, yeah.
And you come from you just kind of touching on it, a non-traditional tech background. You were in the armed forces. Tell us a little bit about that. What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the U.S. Army,
Okay.
the greatest branch to ever live. Wow, that's that's what people say. I am not very prideful. I love all the branches. But yeah, I was in the U.S. Army. I was in from 2017 to 2020. I didn't get to do the 30 years that I wanted. The Lord had other plans, and I ended up getting badly injured that I couldn't stay in or upkeep my physical ability. But I learned a lot. While I was there, I was driving trucks, which was my primary job. 88 Mike, it's a motor transport operator, if I can get that right. And I actually got taken off the line, the truck line, to assist with the S6 shop, which is basically the communications and technology shop. So, like, we deal with troubleshooting computers, even to setting up radio communications on the trucks. They found out I worked for Dish Network prior to joining the military. So cable dogging was something that I really enjoy. And climbing up and setting up cables. So I was like, hey, let's get this guy to help us. And this is all God's plan. It was designed
Yeah.
this way for a reason. He kept me there throughout my time in the military. So I was basically what they would call a 25 Bravo, an IT specialist, and also a 25 uniform, which is more communication specialist, dealing with the radio. And it was cool because I always desired to be in the IT field as a technician, doing computers is something I've always had a passion for since I was like 10 years old. At 10 years old, I was exposed to graphic design. I came from a photography and video background. Fun fact about me, I was a semi-pro motorsports photographer. So there was always technology in my life, and I'm also a self-taught musician. So learning how to produce my own music and intertwining all these artistic talents and gifts that I've had into technology as time progressed. And having that opportunity in the military actually gave me more free time to do freelancing on the side. So,
Well, yeah, let's go into that. You started freelancing as a software developer while you were in the military?
as a web developer,
Web
right?
developer.
Yeah.
Yeah. If everyone listening to audio, he did air quotes. So a web developer. How'd you kind of get your foot in the door doing that?
So I actually was learning how to use WordPress more and building websites with WordPress. I had my own personal website for my photography and for my video work. I was a tech YouTuber for a little bit. So I had websites that I created over time. But this time I was doing a photography business on the side while I was stationed in Hawaii. So what place isn't better to have that type of business? And I did that, and I helped out some, service members get photos of themselves with their families, maternity shoots, etc., engagement. And I built a website. But heard about this theme builder called Divi, and by Elegant Themes. And I heard about Elegant Themes in the past, and I've used some of their themes, but I didn't know they had a page builder. So then I started learning about page builders, and that's why I say quote unquote web developer, because I feel like I'm more of a designer than a web developer in that sense,
Yeah.
because it's a no code solution. Um, but fast forward, I was talking to a friend who was former military as well, and he had an SEO company. I don't know if he still has it. And I met him through a video game. This is the funniest thing ever. I met him through a video game, and we became friends. And then he talked about Divi, and he's like, "Hey, this hosting company called Host Husky, they give you Divi as part of you hosting with them." So I did that, $9 a month, and I am able to put at least 3 sites on my account. And then from there, I had an issue where I talked to the founder of the company, because this is a very small one-person startup. And we started chatting. He helped me with the issue. I started designing things, and he saw how I work, and he hired me as a contractor while I was in the military in 2019.
That's a great way to get in, is the sure thing. Just someone
Yeah.
sees what you can do and
Hmm.
just starts saying, I can give you money. Just do things for me.
Yeah, and it all started because he was like, "Hey, I really like what you're doing here," and we had conversation. We talked about my faith and his faith. His faith is non-conventional to mine. So he's a Mormon. I'm an evangelical Christian. But that didn't stop God from working there, and kind of paving my way through this career. And he asked me to do a logo for one of his clients because they were building a course site. And he asked me how much would I charge, and I'll be transparent. I was like, $250.
For a
So
logo?
like,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, yeah, sure. So he was
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And he gave me just what he needed, and I just put it together, and that was it. And I made $250 quick. The Lord knows I needed it, right? So, and that's where it all started. And I'm not with Small Dot, which is the creative agency that he has that built Host Husky, but I did do work for Small Dot from 2019 all the way to the beginning of 2021.
Now, we talk a lot about life work balance. How were you balancing doing your freelancing work with the very demanding work of the military?
Mm-hmm.
Because you
Yeah,
can't
that's
really just take time off
right.
military to go do your
Mhm.
freelancing stuff.
No, correct. And that's why I say like God was so good because it was a blessing in disguise is being able to be in a position where my leadership would give me time to just, you know, go do what I gotta do. Once I was done with my work, but still be present, be available by my phone.
Gotcha.
Um, Obviously when it comes to like trainings, I can't get out of that. I have to go.
Yeah.
So the founder of these two companies, Host Husky and Small Dot, it's the same founder. He was gracious enough to understand one, that I was in the military, and two, that I was in Hawaii. So I was like 6 hours behind completely. So when he was working or going to or done for the day, I was like midway into my day working for the army. So a lot of my work was done after I got home where he would be sleeping. So,
It's
um,
almost a benefit for you because all the communication has to be asynchronous. So
mhm,
you'll send a message at the end of your day, but that's when his day is starting. And
mhm.
then when you're ready to work, you have the answer, hopefully, to all your questions.
But I
Uh,
actually don't like that. I'm
you
more
want
of
that
a
one on one, that Zoom
Yeah, I'm
meeting,
more of a
or
real
yeah,
time person. Yeah. So it's with that experience, I learned a lot about what it is to work in a creative agency environment, the pace, the asynchronous communication, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the times what I did was I looked down because I'm looking at my phone and I had Google Chat there, which is where we talk through. So if he had a question, I wasn't doing nothing. I was answering questions. I had a Galaxy Note 8 or 9 around the time. I think it was a 9, and it was big enough where if I needed to make some changes on a website, I could with the little pen.
gotcha.
So
Pull your phone out, do some quick work, bill
yeah,
15 minutes. And
right.
how, so I'm really curious. So I live in a Navy town. So I am surrounded by military folks my
Mhm,
entire life. I was a Navy brat. I love working with veterans. Like veterans are always they're always on time. They're always structured. Like they follow the rules and they don't take any BS. I love working with those types of folks. How do
mhm.
you think your military training has kind of helped you become a better software developer?
So my military training experience actually helped me be a better project manager. So when I was in Small Dot and I was doing contract work, I also led a team of myself and a web designer. And then I also got to the point where I was talking to clients at a high level.
Hmm.
I even got presented like the opportunity to be a vice president of the company and all the things. I even helped with the Host Husky side. But The thing is that I learned what it was to manage tasks and like rating them accordingly, which is also a part of being a software developer, software engineer, being able to be discerning on how much a task is going to take or the priority of a specific task, the user stories, etc. Because even though that you're in the military, you're at a lower level, the one thing that my dad taught me when he was in the military and he taught me when I was going in is always look us 2 steps ahead, 2 ranks above you. And that's where I always wanted to be. To this day, I always have that mentality. So like I'm a software engineer today. The first day that I got into my job, I asked my boss, what's it going to take for me to be a senior or being at your position?
Yeah.
Because it's important for me. And a lot of times when I get there, so we have that cap on. So that's something that I do. Like I help my peers, my subordinates around me in areas that they don't know. I was in the healthcare industry. I work for a healthcare SaaS company. There are certain things from a user experience and a UI side of things that doesn't make any sense the way that they're developing. So what I do is I take leadership. I'm a thought leader. I give my thoughts and opinions on that. And I think that's where my military experience has also taught me not to be fearful of giving a leadership like thought. Always take ownership, especially when you have autonomy. In the role that I was in the military, I had so much autonomy that it was dangerous. And I failed at that autonomy. I lacked in certain areas. God made sure that I knew, and he humbled me and made sure that I knew that I was lacking in these areas and I needed to fix it. Same thing when I got out of the military into the civilian world and continue contracting, freelancing, and then working these other jobs and the ones that I got laid off from. Same thing. There was something I lacked in. But since joining as a software engineer, the current role that I have, I've taken all my failures and all the good stuff and implemented it into a much better way of being a developer.
I love that so much. It's I have a hard time with that as well, is the autonomy of if I've had projects before where I kind of had a blank slate
Mm-hmm.
and I have to take that and I have to add structure to it and I have to give myself individual deadlines, and my end client doesn't really care that I got something done today, but I care that I got task A, B, C done. They're all adding up to this bigger project, because when I don't do that, and I've had this early in my career where I've gotten to the end of projects and I have failed to deliver what I was asked to deliver. And it was because I didn't keep myself to a stringent enough schedule and deliverables and deadlines. So I can really appreciate just bringing that structure into managing a project.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. I'm still not good at it. I honestly prefer when there's something like a criteria that needs to be met, and then I can execute on the criteria. That's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
But if I have to do something out of blank slate, let's say that I don't have any experience in, I'm a frozen deer looking at headlights. And but if you give me something like a healthcare, it's a perfect example because I have a passion. I've worked in the healthcare customer service industry for a while, and the products that we're building at my company, they help the customer service aspect of the healthcare industry. So there, my thought leadership is ignited. It's fueled. Why? Because something I have a passion for, something that I really enjoy. The technologies that we're using, I'm having a lot of fun with. Technologies that I don't know, I'm still having a lot of fun with learning them. And then also getting to know that the company I work for is made up of 10% of military veterans. The CTO is a US Air Force veteran. So in a way, it's like, whoa, like God has placed me in a place where I'm not only valued because they see the work ethic that I can bring to the table, but there's a lot of decisions that I've been able to make because they've recognized, oh, this person is a thought leader. Instead of where I've been before in certain places where my thought leadership was just kind of like written down, and then paper was crumbled and thrown into the garbage. And that's demoralizing, but it happens.
So let's move on. Sadly, your military career came to an end, and not necessarily by your own choice. How did you rebound from that, and what was next after you had to leave the military?
Yeah, so when I got out, we bought a house. We were about to have our second child. When I was in the military, I had one child. So balancing a little bit of that, balancing like being a full-time dad, full-time service member, full-time husband, and then a basically almost part-time to full-time contractor was very tough. And I was very consumed by my work. I need to get that done before I can spend time with my family. And a little bit of that actually seeped into moving into the civilian world. One, because it was the only thing that I had some income from, but I didn't really make much from it. And then two, I was also looking for a more stable job, which eventually I ended up being working for a garbage company as a recycling hauler. I got laid off of that, but I was still doing freelance because I would go in at 5 a.m, get out by 2 o'clock. So it was a full shift. And then after 2 o'clock, I'd come home and then I would work on websites for the same company. Then I started getting into business meetings and decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So my responsibility started becoming a lot more weighted. And that was a lot of pressure that I say, oh yeah, I can handle it. Today I realize now that at that time I was really lying to myself and forcing something that God just didn't have prepared for me then. So as a devoted Christian, I have to come to a realization that I have to humble myself and see what God's will is in my life and for my family as I walk this path. God knows what I want and what my family needs, but there's a fine line where I have to choose over providing for my family's necessity over a vanity metric that I might try to be fulfilled at the time. So I did that freelancing contracting all the way to like December 2020. A lot of hard lessons were learned through that time. I lied to my family at times. I'll be very transparent here if that's okay with certain things. And I ended up getting an office outside and I was paying for that. Basically, everything that I was making was just to maintain that little area so that I'd be able to do work. And that wasn't my best moment at all. That's one of the failures that really taught me that I need to focus on my family's necessity more than trying to build a career that may not take me anywhere in that season.
So what was the next catalyst that eventually brought you into full-time software development?
So I ended up working after that, leaving as a contractor. I ended up working for Homeland Security in the immigration department as a data entry operator, night shift. This was the start of 2021, and everything was going well. Night shift was great. I got differential, so I got a little extra money, but I had the day to do whatever I like. If I wanted to work on a freelance business, I kept doing freelancing as much as possible. I kept networking with other people, etc. But I also had to focus on my family and knew my best to do that. Then all of a sudden, towards the latter end of 2021, I read that I can use my GI Bill to go to a boot camp or any tech vocational program. So I went there, I talked to my wife, we kind of figured out everything. We prayed about it. I felt at peace and the Lord said, go for it because I get paid to go to the school as long as it's full time. And because the job that I had, would allow me to go part-time. I still got night differential. So it's like almost I didn't lose any money. And I was able to go to school full-time so I can get paid by the VA for going to school, which actually compensated very well. per month while I was going, and still paid the bills and some. And I I finished a full stack development boot camp in 2021, and then I started looking for a role. I didn't get into a role, so I continued working this job until eventually in 2022 I broke into tech, like my first official on paper role as a video creator for a WordPress company. Before, I've done some contracting work as a freelance video creator, creating tutorials for like Divi and whatnot. So I had that repertoire and that experience. But eventually, fast forward, that was one of those jobs that I had so much autonomy that it was so dangerous, but there was no structure because that position was new and I had to build the structure. So I failed. And out of that failing, I learned that I abused my autonomy way too much. And I didn't get the job done the way that I should have. So I got let go. And I was trying to look for a job as a developer. I said, no, I told my wife, this time I'm gonna look for a job as a developer, no video content creation. I could do that anytime. She's like, well, you're gonna have to work McDonald's or Panda Express or something to pay the bill so that the severance pay doesn't go away, yada, yada, yada. And yeah, things didn't look good. Nothing was promising. I work with with Tech System, which is a very well-known recruiting agency. And then, that took a while. I put in some applications. I got rejection after rejection after rejection. So I ended up working for FedEx. And then I ended up working for FedEx for only a couple of weeks, which is insane because eventually I got my UI UX developer role in the summer.
And then you moved on to where you are now with the healthcare SaaS. And I feel like that's a pretty well-rounded career you've had so far, and you're just getting started.
Yeah, it has been amazing because I started off at like a 5-figure role. So I started off at like 80K in the first developer role that I got. And then when I was doing video creation, same thing, 80K. So like I was so humble enough that I was like, hey, I would be willing to work for you guys if you guys can meet me at 80K. And they did. Which for most companies, that's better than anything because they would rather pay less, right? And so I started working that job. There was a season where things started going well, and there was a season when things didn't go so well, and I experienced burnout. I was like, wow, this is what a lot of developers, programs are talking about on YouTube, Twitter, all the spaces about burnout when it comes to coding. But my burnout affected my relationship with God and affected my relationship with my family. So it kind of almost felt like I was in a small dot years, right? Like after the military, but not as bad. Yeah. And then fast forward, I got laid off. And that was a blessing in disguise. This time around, I had enough experience with multiple languages and being a developer that I was able to position myself as a mid-level developer. The thing about when you have leadership skills and you have some creative agency experience and all these things, but my resume did not show it. So my problem was, Kevin, my resume was crap. So I polished that up, fast forward, what was supposed to be 6 months of unemployment or more, or just me working at a local fast food chain, right? Trying to make ends meet and whatnot, turned into like 6 weeks of unemployment, which I only got 1 check out of it because my state, there was a lot of discrepancy there. And then next thing you know, I got an offer letter and now I'm making 6 figures in less than 2 years and breaking into tech. And I'm not trying to showboat or just say, oh yeah, but I've learned that if you know how to position yourself and you know how to walk the talk, you're able to get into the places that you can get. And obviously faith plays a big part in my life. So I believe there was also God's grace over my family as well.
What's next?
What is next? That's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's a lot of next. what I didn't mention is that throughout all of this, I created a podcast for Christian developers. So Christian developers can come onto the podcast and give their testimony, their stories, talk about technology, faith, etc. Then I actually created a community. Now, there was a hiatus. Things weren't going so well because I was trying to balance life. Right, all that stuff that you just heard, it was like a tornado. Right, it's like, where is everything gonna fall after the tornado is done? Right, well, it was all over the place, and things weren't going so well there, and like inspiration, whatnot. This latter of 2023, like late summer, when I started, beginning of the summer of 2023, traction started coming through. I picked up the podcast. I started putting more effort into the community, and now we have a pretty good community that's growing. So for this year, going to continue growing the efforts for Code Fellowship. And out of this, and through FlowClub, I met another software engineer who is of the faith, and we are planning on starting up a faith tech company together, just lightly bootstrapping it, taking our time. He has a full-time software engineer role, just like me. Our goal is not to replace our jobs. Our goal is to honor and glorify God with our skills and our talents and gifts, and also learn from the process of what it is to build up a faith tech company. Soon enough, I'm going to launch the first product, which is kind of like a newsletter product, a strategy to build up the mailing list and user base for the 3 products that we're going to build out throughout this year.
Well, that's awesome. I'll have to have you back in a couple of months or a year or so and see how that's all going. Joshua, just kind of wrapping things up here. If there's anyone out here who's inspired by your journey and they said, I want to be just like Joshua, what's a piece of advice you might give to that person right now?
Yeah, so one piece of advice that I would give is, one, if you're of the faith, and I'm addressing it because this is like a different way of speaking to both non-believers and believers. If you're of the faith, don't trust in your heart. Trust in God's heart and His will for your life. Present all your plans to Him, and He will guide your steps and the path that you should go. Time and time again, everything that I have mentioned in areas, and I can go hours talking about my testimony in those areas, is because I didn't listen to God. So there was time of humbling. And then when I humbled myself, I'm exalted. Jesus says that if you exalt yourself, you will be humbled. And if you humble yourself, you'll be exalted. You don't want to be humbled. You want to be humble so that you may be exalted, so that things can go well for you. And for the non-believers, I would also give the same advice. Be humble. Know your worth. Structure that worth, but don't be prideful. Keep a low vision, low peripheral. That's what Jesus is saying here. You know your worth, but don't exalt yourself above others, because you can learn from everyone. You really can. And recognize your flaws. Everyone, this is for everyone. Recognize your flaws before they bring destruction to the path that you're trying to build. Whether it's software development, product management, whatever role in tech or in life in general, that's my advice. Because if you're trying to do freelance is going to consume a lot of your time away from your family, because you're trying to build up a name, you're trying to build up your business. And that's something that I'm going to take in with this year is baby steps, and focus on one client at a time. And then the Lord will open up a path where I can do good work for a couple hours in my day job and do self-development and career improvement and use that as part of that.
Anything that we missed that we could talk about before we wrap up?
No, I think this is really awesome. I love the inspiration that has come from all the episodes that I've listened to and I will continue to listen to. And I'm definitely going to take up upon your invitation of the Discord, so I can learn from everyone. Um, but I don't think there's anything else. I think if you are wanting to be a part of my community and
Mhm.
want to be in fellowship, you guys can check out Code Fellowship on YouTube, on all the podcasting platforms, and then you can send me a message over on Twitter. I'm active on Twitter and Threads. Send me a message over on Twitter, and I can send you a link to the community. I am gonna try to be building in public, so hey, help me help you, and you help me. so
Yeah,
so yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's all I have to say there.
sounds good. And we'll put links to everything in our show notes too. So it should be nice and easy for everyone to come find you, find your community. And there's plenty of room to cross pollinate. Joshua, with that, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Multi-Threaded Income Podcast. We'll see you again next week. Y'all have a great week. You've been listening to the Multi-Threaded Income Podcast. I really hope that this podcast has been useful for you. If it has, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget, the conversation doesn't stop here. Join us on our Discord at mti.to/Discord. I've been your host, Kevin Griffin, and we'll see you next week. Cha-ching!